Daniel Ross checked his reflection in the bathroom mirror for the third time that evening. His hair refused to cooperate, sticking up at odd angles no matter how much he tried to smooth it down. He gave up and splashed cold water on his face instead. The droplets felt sharp against his skin, doing nothing to calm the nervous energy bouncing around in his chest. His co-worker Chirrut had set this whole thing up. The insectoid had cornered Daniel in the engineering bay 2 weeks ago, clicking his mandibles excitedly while insisting that Daniel needed to meet someone. Chirrut meant well, but his understanding of human social customs left much to be desired. When Daniel asked what this person was like, Chirrut had simply said she was interesting and walked away. Now Daniel stood outside the Nebula Garden, one of the fanciest restaurants on Station Harmony. The entrance glowed with bioluminescent panels that shifted through colors he had no names for. Alien couples walked past him, some floating, some slithering, some walking on more legs than seemed necessary. He felt very small and very human. He stepped inside. The host was a being made entirely of what looked like living crystal. It chimed at him in a language his translator implant struggled to process, then gestured toward a table near the observation windows. Daniel followed, weaving between tables occupied by species from across the galaxy. She was already there. Daniel stopped walking for a moment, his brain trying to process what he was seeing. She was huge, easily 7 feet tall even while sitting. Her scales were the deep red of cooling lava, catching the light from the windows and throwing it back in shades of crimson and gold. Her eyes were molten amber, vertical pupils tracking his approach with an intensity that made him feel like prey. 2 wings, folded tight against her back, shifted slightly as he got closer. A dragon. Chirrut had set him up with an actual dragon. Daniel forced his feet to move again. He reached the table and managed something that might have been a smile. His mouth felt too dry. "Hello," he said. His voice came out quieter than he intended. "I'm Daniel. I am Solara of the Flamekeeper clan, daughter of High Commander Drakkar, trained in the ancient combat forms of my people." Her voice was deep and formal, each word pronounced with careful precision. She did not smile. "You may sit," Daniel sat. The chair felt too small suddenly, or maybe he just felt too small. Solara's presence seemed to fill the entire space around their table. He noticed other diners glancing over, then quickly looking away when they met her gaze. "So," Daniel tried again. "The weather on the station has been nice lately. The climate control systems are working really well." Solara tilted her head, a gesture that reminded Daniel of a bird studying an insect. "My world has no seasons. The volcanoes burn eternally. This concept of controlled weather is strange to me." "Oh, right, of course." Daniel felt heat creeping up his neck. "I just meant, small talk. You know, to break the ice? There is no ice to break. We are in temperature-regulated environment." Daniel nodded slowly, realizing she had taken him literally. He tried a different approach. "Tell me about your family. Do you have any siblings?" Solara's eyes flashed and her wings spread slightly before she pulled them back in tight. The temperature around their table seemed to rise by several degrees. "Among my people, one does not speak of family matters with strangers. It is a grave insult to pry into clan structures. I'm sorry, I didn't know. Humans ask about family all the time. It's just normal conversation for us. I am not human." The words hung between them like a wall. Daniel looked down at his hands, feeling the date slipping away before it had really started. This was a mistake. Chirrut had made a terrible mistake, and Daniel was paying for it. A waiter approached, some species Daniel did not recognize, and placed dishes in front of them. Daniel looked at his plate and frowned. It was definitely not what he had ordered. The food seemed to be moving slightly, and it gave off a smell like burnt rubber. "Excuse me," Daniel said to the waiter. "I think there's been a mistake." The waiter checked a data pad, made a clicking sound, and hurried away. Daniel looked at Solara, who was staring at her own incorrect order with an expression he could not read. "Well," Daniel said, a laugh escaping before he could stop it, "I guess the universe is trying to tell us something. This date is going so badly that even the food is giving up." He expected silence. He expected her to be offended. Instead, Solara made a sound like distant thunder rolling across mountains. It took Daniel a moment to realize she was laughing. "That is an amusing observation," she said. Her formal tone had softened slightly. "Perhaps the kitchen staff senses our discomfort and attempts to end our suffering quickly through poisoning." Daniel felt himself smile for real this time. Death by mystery food. At least it would make a good story. My people value good death stories, and so do mine, actually. We tell them at funerals sometimes. They looked at each other across the table. Something had shifted just slightly. The wall was still there, but maybe it had a crack in it now. The waiter returned with correct orders this time, apologizing profusely. Daniel took a bite of his food, which was blessedly normal. Solara ate in a way that involved small flames occasionally escaping from her nostrils. Daniel tried not to stare. I should be honest, Daniel said after a few minutes of quiet eating. I have no idea what I'm doing here. Humans only joined the galactic community 30 years ago. Most of the time I feel like I'm going to accidentally start an interstellar incident just by saying hello wrong. Solara set down her utensils carefully. Honesty is valued among my kind. I appreciate your words. What about you? Do you go on these kinds of dates often? Never before. My family arranged this meeting. They believe I am too curious about other species. They hope that direct contact will cure me of this weakness. Weakness? Being curious? Among dragonkin, yes. We are warriors. We are not meant to question or wonder. We are meant to fight and conquer. Daniel thought about that, watching the way Solara's golden eyes reflected the starlight from the windows. That sounds lonely. She went very still. For a long moment, she did not respond. When she finally spoke, her voice was quieter than before. Yes, it is. The awkward silence settled over their table again like fog. Daniel pushed food around his plate, trying to think of something safe to say. Every topic felt like a potential minefield. Sports? Did dragons even have sports? Music? He had no idea. The weather topic had already crashed and burned spectacularly. Solara ate with precise, controlled movements. Daniel noticed she kept her wings tucked in so tight they must have been uncomfortable. Everything about her posture screamed discipline and restraint. It made him wonder what she looked like when she was relaxed, if she ever was. Do you enjoy working on the station? Solara asked suddenly. Daniel looked up, grateful for any conversation. Yeah, actually. I'm a mechanical engineer. I work on the environmental systems mostly, keeping all the different species comfortable in their own sections. It's like a puzzle, making sure the methane breathers don't accidentally poison the oxygen breathers. That requires intelligence and care. I guess so. What about you? What do you do here? I serve as a military liaison. I review security protocols and advise on defensive strategies. She paused. It is not what I would choose if choice were mine to make. What would you choose? Solara's clawed hand tightened slightly on her fork. That is not a question I am permitted to answer even to myself. Daniel felt something twist in his chest. He recognized that tone. It was the same one he had used back on Earth when people asked him why he left. Why he ran away to space instead of staying to fix his problems. Some questions hurt too much to answer honestly. Before he could respond, their waiter returned with another being in tow, this one wearing what looked like a manager's uniform. They both looked nervous. Deepest apologies, the manager said in rapid, high-pitched tones. There has been confusion in kitchen. Your meals were switched with table for methane-breathing guests. They are currently very upset. We compensate your bill fully. The manager scurried away before either of them could respond. Daniel watched them go, then looked at Solara. They both stared at each other for a moment. Then Daniel started laughing. Not a polite chuckle, but a real laugh. The kind that came from somewhere deep in his belly. We almost ate food meant for methane breathers. We could have died. Solara's eyes widened, and then she was laughing too, that thunderous sound that made nearby tables turn to look. The universe truly does wish to end this date. Maybe it's a sign we should give up now, leave before we accidentally get served something meant for lava dwellers. My people are lava dwellers. See? I can't even make a joke without messing up. But Daniel was grinning now, and Solara's expression had softened into something almost warm. Your humor is strange, Solara said, but not unpleasant. They fell into easier conversation after that. Daniel stopped trying to follow some imaginary script of how dates were supposed to go. He told her about his coworker Chirik, how the insectoid kept trying to get him to try different alien foods and kept being surprised when Daniel's human stomach could not handle them. Chirik means well, Daniel said, but I think he forgets that humans are kind of fragile compared to most species out here. We can't eat half the things available on the station. Our temperature tolerance is narrow. We need specific air pressure. Sometimes I feel like we showed up to a party we weren't really invited to. You feel unwelcome in the galactic community. Not unwelcome exactly, just out of place. Like everyone else has been doing this for thousands of years and we're the new kids who don't know any of the rules yet. Celera was quiet for a moment, her golden eyes studying him with an intensity that made him want to look away. I understand that feeling more than you might think. Really? But your people have been part of the galaxy forever. Yes, and for all that time we have been warriors. Only warriors. When I was young, I loved to watch the stars. I would ask questions about the worlds beyond ours. My teachers punished me for this. They said warriors do not dream, they act. Warriors do not question, they obey. That sounds horrible. It is our way. It has kept us strong for millennia. But it doesn't make you happy. Celera's claws clicked against her glass. Happiness is not required for strength. Daniel thought about how to respond to that. Back on Earth, he had known people who thought the same way. People who believed showing emotion was weakness, that asking for help was failure. He had been one of those people once until it almost destroyed him. Can I tell you something? Daniel asked. Back home, humans have this saying. We say that the strongest trees are the ones that bend in the wind. The ones that are too rigid, too inflexible, they break. You compare my people to trees? I'm comparing everyone to trees, including humans. If we can't bend, can't adapt, can't admit when we need help or when we're curious or when we don't have all the answers, we break. And breaking is way worse than bending. Celera tilted her head again, that bird-like gesture. Your species is very young in galactic terms. You have been in space for less than a single generation of my kind, yet you speak as if you understand the weight of centuries. Maybe that's exactly why we can see it. We're not carrying all those centuries of tradition and expectation. We can look at something and just ask why. Why does it have to be this way? Could it be different? That kind of thinking is dangerous. To who? Celera opened her mouth and closed it again. She looked away, out the observation windows at the stars beyond. Her wings shifted slightly unconsciously, and Daniel saw them tremble. To those who benefit from things staying the same, she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. They sat with that truth between them. Daniel felt the weight of it, the sadness in her words. He wanted to say something comforting, but everything he thought of sounded hollow. I'm sorry, he said instead, that they made you feel like curiosity was wrong. Celera looked back at him sharply. Do not pity me, human. I am a warrior of the Flamekeeper clan. I have trained since childhood in combat. I could break you with one hand. The words were harsh, but Daniel heard the defense mechanism in them. He had used the same kind of words himself plenty of times. When someone gets too close to the truth, you push them away. I'm sure you could, Daniel said calmly, but that doesn't mean you're not allowed to feel things. Being strong and being sad can happen at the same time. You speak strangely. I speak human. We're kind of known for it. Celera made that thunder laugh sound again. Yes, I have heard this about your kind, that you feel everything very deeply. Other species find it disturbing. What do you find it? She was quiet for a long moment, her golden eyes searching his face. Fascinating, she finally said. Dinner continued with safer topics. They talked about station harmony, about the different species that called it home, about the strange politics of trying to make hundreds of different cultures coexist in one space. Daniel started to relax, thinking maybe this date would not be a complete disaster after all. Then Celera said something that changed everything. You must find it difficult, she said, cutting into her food with precise movements. Being among so many predator species when humans are clearly prey. Daniel's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. He set it down carefully. What? I mean, no offense. It is simple observation. Your species is soft-scaled. You have no natural weapons. No claws, no venom, no armor. You are built for running, not fighting. Prey animals. We're not prey animals, but you are small, fragile. Even here on this station, I see how other species tower over humans. How they could harm you so easily. Daniel felt something cold settle in his stomach. It was not anger exactly, or maybe it was, but buried under layers of exhaustion. He had heard variations of this speech 100 times since coming to the station. The pitying looks, the careful way people spoke to him like he might break, the assumption that humanity was weak. We're not prey, he said again, quieter this time. Celera tilted her head, clearly confused by his change in tone. I have caused offense. This was not my intention. No, I know. You're just saying what everyone thinks. Daniel pushed his plate away. That humans are weak, fragile, that we don't belong out here with the real species. I did not say that. You didn't have to. They sat in silence. Daniel could feel Silara watching him, trying to understand what had just happened. He knew he should explain, should smooth this over, but he was tired. Tired of explaining, tired of defending, tired of being seen as less than. Daniel, Silara said carefully, I have made error in my words. Please help me understand what I have said wrong. He looked up at her, at those golden eyes that seemed genuinely confused. Maybe that was what made him finally talk. Not anger, but the simple fact that she actually wanted to know. Humans aren't prey, Daniel said. We survived an ice age that should have killed us. We crawled out of caves and built cities. We fought diseases, predators, each other, and we kept going. We went from making fire to splitting atoms to traveling between stars in just a few thousand years. Our species took millions. I know your history. It is impressive for such a young species. Then why do you call us prey? Why does everyone out here look at us like we're children who wandered into the adults' room by mistake? Silara was quiet for a moment. Because you are small. Because you break easily. Because your bodies are not made for the harshness of space. Our bodies weren't made for Earth either, not originally. We didn't have fur for the cold or claws for hunting or speed for running. We should have died out 100 times over. But we didn't. You want to know why? Yes, because we adapted. We learned. We worked together. We made tools and weapons and shelters. We turned our weaknesses into strengths. That's what humans do. We survive things we have no right to survive. Daniel realized he was leaning forward now, his voice getting louder. Other diners were looking over. He did not care. You know what the really frustrating part is? It's not being called weak. I mean, yeah, compared to most species out here, we are physically weaker. Fine, but that's not what bothers me. What bothers me is not being seen at all. Being dismissed. Like humanity doesn't matter because we can't breathe methane or survive in vacuum or whatever. You feel invisible, Silara said softly. Yeah, exactly. Daniel slumped back in his chair, feeling the anger drain away into something more like sadness. We worked so hard to get out here, to join the galactic community, and now that we're here it's like nobody actually wants us around. I want you around, Daniel looked up, surprised. Silara's expression was serious, her golden eyes fixed on him with that same intensity as before. You do? Yes. Your passion just now, the way you speak of your people's struggles and triumphs, it is not the speech of prey. It is the speech of a warrior defending his clan. I'm not a warrior. Are you certain? You fight with words instead of claws, but you still fight. You defend what matters to you. That is the heart of what being a warrior means. Daniel did not know what to say to that. He had never thought of himself as any kind of warrior. He was just an engineer who could not make things work back on Earth and ran away to space hoping for something better. Can I tell you something about humans? Daniel asked. Something that might help you understand us. Please, we call ourselves soft. We joke about how fragile we are compared to other species. But that's not weakness. That's awareness. We know we're vulnerable, so we protect each other. We know we're not the strongest, so we build communities. We know we can't survive alone, so we form connections. Daniel thought about how to explain it. Other species out here, a lot of them seem to think being tough means being alone. Being independent, not needing anyone. But humans figured out a long time ago that the opposite is true. Being able to admit you need help, being able to care about someone else even when it makes you vulnerable, that's strength. Real strength. Silara leaned forward, completely focused on him now. Explain further. Okay, like back on Earth, we have these huge cities with millions of people, right? And they work because we all agree to help each other. We have systems for taking care of people who are sick or old or can't take care of themselves. Most species would see that as weakness, right? Supporting members who can't contribute? Yes, many would. But we see it as strength. Because those people we take care of today might be the ones who invent something amazing tomorrow. Or they might just be people who deserve to live good lives even if they can't fight or work. We value life for its own sake, not just for what it can do for us. That is very different from my people's way. Yeah, I'm getting that impression. Daniel smiled sadly. Dragonkin only value warriors. But humans value teachers, artists, scientists, caregivers, all kinds of people. We think diversity makes us stronger. Your species is strange. Maybe, but we're still here. Still surviving. Still pushing forward. Silara sat back in her chair, her wings shifting against her back in a way that seemed unconscious. She stared out the observation window at the stars, silent for so long that Daniel started to worry he had said too much. Maybe he had offended her. Maybe comparing human values to dragon values had been a mistake. I apologize, Solara finally said. For what? For calling your people prey. For diminishing what humanity has accomplished. I spoke from ignorance and assumption. She turned back to face him. It is a flaw I have been trying to overcome my entire life. What do you mean? Solara's claws drummed once against the table. A nervous gesture that seemed very out of place on someone who looked so powerful. May I speak truthfully? Even if the truth makes me appear weak, of course. I am considered a failure among my people. The words came out flat, matter-of-fact, but Daniel heard the pain underneath them. Not a complete failure, or I would have been cast out entirely, but a disappointment. A dragon who asks too many questions, who wonders why things must be as they always have been. Daniel stayed quiet, sensing she needed to talk. From the time I was a hatchling, I was different. Other young dragons played at combat, practiced their roars, competed to prove their strength. I did these things too because I had to. But what I really wanted was to understand things. I would stare at the stars and wonder what was out there. I would ask the elders about other species, about their cultures and beliefs. They told me I was wasting my time, that such knowledge was useless for a warrior. But you kept asking anyway. Yes, I could not help myself. It was like hunger, this need to know, to understand. Solara's voice dropped lower. My family tolerated it when I was young. They thought I would grow out of it. When I did not, they tried punishment. When that failed, they tried shame. Nothing worked. I remained curious, so they sent you here. Yes, they called it an honor, being chosen as military liaison to Station Harmony. But we both know the truth. They hoped distance from our homeworld would either cure me or at least keep me from embarrassing them further. Daniel felt his chest tighten. He knew that feeling, that weight of disappointing the people who were supposed to love you. I'm sorry. Do not be. Coming here was the best thing that ever happened to me, even if it was meant as punishment. Solara looked directly at him now, because here I can observe. I can watch how different species interact, how they build their lives, how they choose to exist. And what have you learned? That there are many ways to be strong. That perhaps my people's way is not the only way or even the best way. She paused. And that humans are the most fascinating species I have ever encountered. Daniel blinked. Really? Yes. Since the day your people arrived in the galactic community, I have been watching you. Studying you. Not in a formal capacity, you understand. Just in my own time for my own curiosity. Why? Solara's wings spread slightly, an unconscious movement that made her look even larger. Because you are everything my people say is wrong, yet you thrive. You are physically weak, yet you survived countless extinction events on your world. You are emotional, yet you have built civilizations that span your entire planet. You feel deeply, yet this somehow makes you stronger rather than weaker. She leaned forward, her golden eyes intense. When I first saw humans, I saw my own people watching them with contempt, calling them soft, saying they would not last long in the galactic community. But I watched you and I saw something different. I saw adaptability. I saw resilience. I saw a species that cared for its own in ways I had never witnessed before. I don't understand. What do you mean? I watched human crews working on the station. When one of them made a mistake, the others did not punish or shame them. They helped. They taught. When one of them was struggling, the others supported them. When one of them achieved something, the others celebrated with them. This is not how my people operate. This is not how most warrior species operate. Daniel thought about his own crew back in engineering. Yeah, they looked out for each other. It was just normal, just how things were supposed to be. You protect the weak instead of culling them, Solara continued, her voice growing more passionate. You treasure connection over conquest. You choose compassion when the galaxy chooses cruelty. You value life for its own sake, not for what it can provide to the strong. She paused, and Daniel saw something vulnerable cross her face. Do you know what that meant to me? Watching your people exist in ways I was told were impossible, it meant that maybe, just maybe, I was not broken. That maybe there was another way to live. Daniel felt something crack open in his chest. Solara, when Chirik told me about this date, that he had a human he wanted me to meet, I requested it specifically. I hoped, she trailed off, looking away. I hoped that I could speak with one of you, learn from you, understand how you managed to be so strong while being so soft. And, has this date lived up to your hopes? Solara looked back at him, and Daniel saw something in her eyes he had not seen before. Not just curiosity, but hope. Real desperate hope. You said that humans choose to take care of those who cannot contribute, that you value life for its own sake, that caring deeply is strength, not weakness. She took a breath. That is the strongest thing I have ever heard anyone say. Stronger than any battle cry, stronger than any warrior's oath. Daniel felt his throat get tight. You really mean that? Yes, because it takes no strength to destroy. Any being with power can break things. But to build, to nurture, to care for something vulnerable knowing it makes you vulnerable too, that requires courage I have never possessed. I think you have more of that courage than you realize. Perhaps, or perhaps being near humans is teaching me how to find it. Celara reached across the table, stopping just short of touching his hand. Her claws hovered there, trembling slightly. Thank you, Daniel, for defending your people, for explaining what strength truly means, for showing me that maybe I am not as broken as I believed. Daniel looked at her hand, then at her face. This dragon woman who could probably break him in half without effort, who came from a culture that valued only warriors, who had been taught that curiosity was weakness. And yet here she was, vulnerable and honest and more brave than she knew. He reached out and carefully placed his hand over hers, mindful of the claws. Her scales were warm, almost hot to the touch. She went very still. You're not broken, Daniel said. You're just different. And different is good. Your people believe that? My people know that. It's kind of our whole thing. Celara made that thunder laugh sound, but softer this time, gentler. When she looked at him now, Daniel saw something different in her eyes. Not just curiosity anymore, something warmer. They stayed at the table long after their plates had been cleared away. The restaurant staff seemed to sense something had shifted between them and left them alone. Other diners came and went, but Daniel barely noticed. He was too focused on Celara, on the way her expressions changed when she talked about things that interested her, on the small gestures she made with her clawed hands when she was trying to explain something. Tell me about your world, Daniel said. Not the warrior stuff. Tell me what it actually looks like. Celara's eyes lit up in a way that made her look younger somehow. Dracar Prime is a volcanic world. The skies are red with ash most days. Rivers of lava flow through canyons that have existed since before my species achieved sentience. The heat is intense, even for us. At night, when the ash clears, you can see 3 moons hanging in the sky, each a different color. That sounds beautiful. It is. I used to fly at night when I was supposed to be training. I would go high above the ash clouds and just glide. The silence up there with the moons and stars above and the glow of lava below. It was the only peace I ever knew. Daniel pulled out his datapad. Can I show you something? Yes. He scrolled through his files and found what he was looking for. A song. One his mother used to play when he was a kid. Simple piano music, gentle and soft. He hit play and set the pad on the table between them. Celara tilted her head, listening. As the music played, Daniel watched her face change. Her eyes widened slightly. Her breathing slowed. When the song reached its quiet peak, he saw her blink rapidly and realized with shock that there were tears forming in her golden eyes. What is this? She whispered. Just a song. A human song about finding home, about belonging somewhere. It is beautiful. One tear escaped, rolling down her scaled cheek. I have never heard anything like this. We have battle drums and war chants, but nothing so gentle? Yes, gentle. She wiped at her eyes with the back of her hand, looking embarrassed. Forgive me. I am not supposed to show such emotion. Hey, it's okay. Humans cry at music all the time. It means it moved you. That's a good thing. Among my people, tears are weakness. Among mine, they're just being honest about how you feel. Celara looked at him for a long moment. How do humans do this? How do you exist with so much feeling without being destroyed by it? I don't know. I guess we just accept that feelings are part of life. They're not something to fight against or suppress. They're part of being alive. That must be exhausting, Daniel laughed. Sometimes, yeah. But it's also what makes life worth living. The highs are really high because we let ourselves feel the lows. They talked for another hour, then 2. Daniel told her about Earth, about oceans and forests and cities. He told her about human music and art and literature. Celara listened to everything with intense focus, asking questions, making connections. She told him about dragon legends, stories of ancient warriors and great battles. Daniel found unexpected parallels to human mythology. You know, Daniel said, Humans have dragon stories too. In our old myths, dragons were these powerful, wise creatures. Sometimes they were dangerous, but often they were protectors, guardians of treasure, keepers of knowledge. Your people saw dragons as wise. Some of them, yeah. The best dragon stories were about dragons who were more than just fighters. They were thinkers, philosophers, beings who had lived so long they understood things others could not. I wish my people had such stories. Maybe you can start them. Scylla smiled at that, a real smile that showed her sharp teeth. Perhaps I will. Eventually, they left the restaurant. Daniel paid the bill despite Scylla's protests, and they walked out into the main corridor of Station Harmony. The lights had been dimmed to simulate evening, and fewer people moved through the halls. Would you like to see the observation deck? Daniel asked. It has the best view of the stars on the whole station. I would like that very much. They took a lift up to the top level of the station. The observation deck was a massive dome of transparent aluminum, giving an unobstructed view of space in all directions. A few other people were scattered around, but it was mostly empty. Daniel led Scylla to his favorite spot, a section that looked out toward a distant nebula that glowed green and gold. I come here when work gets to be too much, Daniel said. Reminds me how big everything is. Makes my problems feel smaller. I understand that feeling. Scylla stood beside him, close enough that he could feel the warmth radiating from her scales. Looking at the stars was always my escape. They stood in comfortable silence for a while, just watching the stars. Then Daniel felt something brush against his shoulder. He looked over and realized it was the edge of Scylla's wing. She had extended it slightly, unconsciously, and it now formed a partial shelter over him. Sorry, Scylla said, starting to pull it back. I did not mean to. It's okay, Daniel interrupted. Actually, it's kind of nice, warm. Scylla froze. You do not mind? No, why would I? Because among my people, extending one's wing to shelter another is a gesture of deep affection. It is what parents do for hatchlings, what bonded mates do for each other. It is not something done casually. Daniel felt his heart start beating faster. Oh, I did not think. I simply did it. That is unusual for me. I am always very controlled with my body language. So what does it mean that you did it without thinking? Scylla looked down at him, and Daniel saw vulnerability and hope and fear all mixed together in her golden eyes. I do not know. This is new territory for me. For me too, Daniel admitted. He reached up slowly and touched the edge of her wing where it curved over his shoulder. The membrane was thinner than the scales on her body, delicate despite how strong she looked. But I don't think it's a bad thing, no? No, actually I think it might be a really good thing. They stood like that, her wing sheltering him from the cool air, his hand resting on the warm membrane. Around them, the stars turned slowly as the station rotated. Daniel. Yeah? Thank you for this evening. I thought it would be a disaster, that I would fail at being social, at being anything other than what I was trained to be. But you made me feel like being myself was acceptable. More than acceptable. Being yourself is perfect. You are very kind. I'm just honest. There's a difference. Daniel looked up at her. Can I ask you something? Anything. Would you want to do this again? Meet up, I mean, talk more. Maybe I could show you more human music and you could tell me more dragon legends. Scylla's smile could have lit up the entire deck. Yes, I would like that very much. Good, because I really don't want this to be just one night. I feel like we're just getting started. I feel the same. Scylla's wing tightened slightly around him, pulling him just a bit closer. Is this acceptable in human culture? Wanting to continue seeing someone after a first date? It's more than acceptable. It's kind of the whole point. Then yes, let us continue this. Whatever this is becoming. Daniel leaned into her warmth, feeling the solid presence of her beside him, and looked out at the stars. For the first time since coming to Station Harmony, he felt like maybe he had found something real, something worth staying for. 3 months had passed since that first date. Daniel stood in front of his bathroom mirror again, but this time he was not nervous. He was smiling, thinking about how much had changed. His hair still did not cooperate, but somehow that did not matter anymore. His data pad buzzed with a message from Scylla. Meet me at the observation deck in 1 hour. I have a surprise for you, Daniel grinned. Scylla's surprises were always interesting. Last week she had surprised him by taking him to a dragon combat demonstration, and then explaining all the techniques in detail. The week before that, She had cooked him a traditional dragon meal and only laughed a little when he nearly set his mouth on fire. He finished getting ready and headed out. As he walked through the station corridors, he noticed something that made him pause. A human woman was sitting at a cafe table with a dragonkin male, both of them laughing over drinks. It was not an unusual sight anymore. Over the past few months, more humans and dragons had started interacting, cautiously at first, then with growing confidence. People said it started with him and Silara. That other species saw them together and started questioning their own assumptions. Daniel was not sure about that, but he could not deny that things had shifted on the station. His co-worker Chirik had been insufferably smug about the whole thing. "I knew it would work," the insectoid kept saying. "I knew you two would be perfect together." Daniel had given up trying to explain that their first date had been a near disaster. Chirik only heard what he wanted to hear. Daniel reached the observation deck and found it more crowded than usual. There was some kind of event happening, based on the formal way people were dressed. He spotted Silara near the center of the crowd, speaking with several other dragonkin. She looked beautiful, her scales polished to a deep crimson shine. She saw him and waved him over. As he got closer, he noticed she looked nervous. That was unusual. Silara had grown more confident over the past 3 months, more comfortable being herself, but right now she looked almost afraid. "What's going on?" Daniel asked. "There is an art exhibition tonight. Cross-species cultural exchange. Many artists from different worlds are showing their work." She paused. "I submitted something." Daniel felt his eyes widen. "You did?" "Silara, that's amazing. Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I was not certain they would accept it. And because if they rejected it, I did not want anyone to know I had tried." She looked down at her clawed hands. "Creating art is not something dragonkin do. If my family found out, they would be ashamed. Then we won't tell them. This is for you, not for them." Silara smiled at that, some of the tension leaving her shoulders. "You always know the right thing to say." "I learned from the best." They walked through the exhibition together. There were paintings, sculptures, holograms, sound installations, pieces from dozens of different species and cultures. Daniel watched Silara's reactions more than the art itself. She studied each piece with intense focus, her golden eyes drinking in every detail. Then they reached a section near the back and Silara stopped walking. "There," she whispered. Daniel looked where she was pointing and saw a sculpture. It was made from some kind of metal he did not recognize, worked into a shape that took him a moment to understand. 2 figures, one tall and scaled, one smaller and smooth, reaching toward each other across a gap. Their hands did not quite touch, but the space between them seemed to shimmer with possibility. "Silara," Daniel breathed. "Did you make this?" "Yes, I worked on it at night in my quarters using metal shaping techniques from my world. No one knew. I called it Bridge Between Worlds." There was a small plaque next to the sculpture. Daniel read it and felt his throat get tight. The piece had won an award, first place in the cultural exchange category. "You won," he said. "Silara, you won first place, I know. They told me an hour ago. I have been too afraid to look at it." Daniel took her hand, careful of the claws. "Look at it. Really look at it. You created something beautiful. Something that matters." Silara stared at her sculpture for a long moment. Then she started crying, tears rolling down her scaled cheeks. Daniel pulled her away from the crowd, finding a quiet corner where they could have privacy. "I am sorry," Silara said, wiping at her eyes. "This is not warrior behavior. Stop apologizing for having feelings. You're allowed to be proud. You're allowed to be happy. You created art that won an award and you should celebrate that. My people would not celebrate this. They would see it as abandoning my duties as a warrior. Your people aren't here right now. I am. And I'm so proud of you I could burst." Silara laughed through her tears. "You are very dramatic. It's a human thing." They stood together in the quiet corner while the exhibition continued around them. After a few minutes, Silara seemed to collect herself. She stood straighter, wings folding neatly against her back. "There is something I want to ask you," she said. "Something important?" "Okay. These past 3 months with you have been the happiest of my life. You have taught me that being myself is not weakness, that curiosity is strength, that there are many ways to be strong and all of them are valid." Daniel felt his heart start racing. "Silara, among my people, when 2 dragons wish to commit to each other permanently, They perform a fire bonding ceremony. They pledge to keep each other's flames burning, to shelter each other, to stand together against the universe. That sounds beautiful. I have been researching human customs as well. You have something called partnership, yes? Where two people commit to building a life together. Yeah, we do. It's called marriage, or sometimes just being partners. It means you choose someone and keep choosing them every day for as long as you both want. Salara took both his hands in hers, careful with her claws. I would like to do both. A fire bonding and a partnership. I would like to commit to you in every way our cultures recognize. If you would have me. Daniel felt like the observation deck was spinning, like gravity had stopped working. Are you asking what I think you're asking? I am asking you to bond with me, to be my partner, to continue teaching me how to live with an open heart instead of closed fists. Yes, Daniel said immediately. Yes, absolutely yes. Salara pulled him into an embrace, her wings wrapping around them both. Daniel felt her warmth, smelled the slight sulfur scent that always clung to her scales, and felt completely safe despite being held by someone who could break him so easily. I love you, he said into her shoulder. I know it's only been 3 months and maybe that's too fast by some standards, but I don't care. I love you. I love you too. In my language, we would say you are my flame keeper, the one who keeps my fire burning when I cannot. They stood like that for a long time, wrapped in her wings, surrounded by stars visible through the observation deck dome. Eventually, they pulled apart and walked back to the exhibition. People were gathering around Salara's sculpture, pointing and discussing it in multiple languages. A station official approached them, a being that looked like living crystal. Salara of Drakkar Prime, congratulations on your award. We would like you to make a speech if you are willing. Salara looked at Daniel, fear crossing her face again. He squeezed her hand. You can do this. Just be honest. She nodded and followed the official to a small platform. The crowd quieted as she stepped up. Daniel watched her take a deep breath, her wings spreading slightly in what he now recognized as a gesture of nervous energy. I am Salara, she began, her deep voice carrying across the space. I am Dragonkin, trained as a warrior from the time I was a hatchling. My people do not create art. They do not celebrate beauty. They celebrate only strength and victory in battle. The crowd was completely silent now, everyone watching the tall dragon woman speak. For most of my life, I believed this was right. That my desire to create, to understand, to wonder about the universe was a flaw to be corrected. Then I came to Station Harmony, and I met humans. She looked directly at Daniel, a small smile crossing her face. Humans taught me that there are many kinds of strength. That caring deeply is not weakness. That creating something beautiful takes as much courage as any battle. And one human in particular taught me that being different is not being broken. Salara gestured to her sculpture. This piece represents what I have learned, that the space between different people, different species, different ways of living, that space does not have to be empty. It can be filled with understanding, with connection, with love. Her voice grew stronger. I dedicate this work to the human who taught me these things. To Daniel, who showed me that the human capacity for love and acceptance is perhaps the strongest force in this galaxy. You do not conquer with weapons. You conquer with compassion, and that is more powerful than any army. The crowd erupted in applause. Daniel felt tears on his face but did not bother wiping them away. He watched Salara step down from the platform, watched her walk back to him with her head held high and her wings spread wide, no longer hiding what she was. When she reached him, she pulled him close again. Did I do well? You were perfect. They left the exhibition together eventually, walking back to the observation deck spot that had become theirs. The same spot where everything had changed that first night. They sat together on the floor, her wing draped over his shoulders, looking out at the stars. I have heard things, Salara said quietly. Other dragonkin on the station are talking. Some are curious about humans now. Some are even seeking them out to learn more. That's because of you. You showed them it was possible. We showed them together. Daniel leaned into her warmth. Do you think things will really change? Between our species? I do not know. Change is slow, especially for people as old as mine. But I believe we have started something. Proven that different can work together, that soft and strong are not opposites. I hope you're right. I learned from you that hope is also strength. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the universe turn slowly outside the station. Daniel thought about his life 3 months ago, about how lost and alone he had felt, how he never imagined that a disastrous blind date would lead to this, to finding someone who understood him completely, despite being from a different world entirely. Hey, Solara, yes? I'm really glad Chirik set us up. She laughed, that thunder sound he had grown to love. I am also glad, though I will never tell him that. His ego is already insufferable. Deal. They stayed there until the station's lights began brightening again to simulate morning. Neither of them wanted to leave, to break the perfect peace of the moment. But eventually they had to return to their lives, to their duties and responsibilities. As they stood to go, Solara took Daniel's hand one more time. Thank you, she said, for seeing me, for helping me see myself. Thank you for letting me, Daniel replied, for being brave enough to show me who you really are. They walked out of the observation deck together, her wing brushing his shoulder, his hand in hers. Behind them, the stars continued their eternal dance, and ahead of them, a future full of possibility waited. The blind date that almost failed had become the connection that changed two species' understanding of strength, and proved that the human capacity for love was perhaps their greatest power of all.